So I'm very, very excited to introduce Kristi OBrien. Welcome to the stage.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. We have a skeleton crew. I know it's the third day, so everyone's a little bit tired. So we'll try to keep this exciting because it is influencer marketing. I'm going to try to stand. If I get tired, we'll see how Heels and 7 Months Pregnant goes. We'll get there. So my name's Kristi. I am the general manager of the brand platform at LTK. And for those of you who aren't familiar with LTK, we are a creator commerce technology platform that connects brands, consumers, and creators. And our business is actually structured around those 3 different groups. So I oversee our brand-facing business unit, which really means that I spend all my time with advertisers like yourselves, really figuring out how to harness the power of creator commerce through technology, relationships with creators, and marketing campaigns. So I'm going to talk today for about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll leave some room for Q&A. And I'm going to start by going backwards and just kind of giving some context for the industry, how the industry started, how we got to where we are today. And then spend some time really talking about right now and this particular moment in 2022, what's happening, how is it different, and how you can utilize creator marketing in this particular moment in time. And so that's what we'll spend the majority of our time together really chatting about, how advertisers can be more with creator commerce. So we'll start by taking a step back. I've been with LTK for about 4 years. This industry is one that's been growing really rapidly for about 15, really 10. LTK has been around for about 11. And we'll start with a story that probably most of you are really familiar with, which is the disruption of traditional media through just complete content proliferation across the web. So what happened is you really see here that there used to be only a few media players that really controlled the narrative, if you will, of content. And that's where consumers spent all of their time kind of in these particular properties. And over time, actually very quickly, with the emergence of social media, and the emergence of web and just blogs and things like that, creators actually came to the forefront of the narrative. And with that, they're developing these very deep and meaningful relationships with audiences across all of these different properties every single day, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagram, whether it's LTK, Pinterest, Facebook, you name it, and they're changing all the time. The second key trend that allowed creator commerce to really take off was that the majority of online shopping is now happening on your mobile device. So this is not new. You've all been shopping on your phones for a while, but it continues to increase. And we're now at a point where roughly 70% of online shopping is actually happening inside of that mobile device. And what's even more interesting is that shopping behavior is actually originating in social media. And so here you can see that 70% to 80% of shoppers are influenced by what they see in social media, which is probably not surprising to many of you who have probably bought things off of TikTok, bought things off of Instagram. But it's really important, and really the confluence of these 3 trends, content proliferation across the web, shopping happening on mobile devices, and shopping originating inside of social media, is what has really led to an entirely new revolution in retail, which is creator commerce, creator-powered commerce. And all of these messages are coming at consumers in a very fast way. And what we see is that creators are actually really good at communicating with these audiences, no matter where they are, across all of these different social channels, and are actually really effective at utilizing the channels for whatever they're best at. The other thing that's really powerful about creators is they understand what products and what brands will really resonate with their audiences and how to talk about them. And the beautiful thing about LTK is we really are the kind of media and technology powerhouse that's powering that entire ecosystem to really bring all of these consumers, all of these channels, all of these brands and products together in one ecosystem. So now that we know one more. the thing that we love at LTK about creator commerce is the fact that it truly is data-first marketing. So it is a broad misconception that creators are really waking up and like on a whim, they're deciding what they want to post about, and it can be anything and it doesn't really matter what it is. That's not actually true. LTK drives and tracks billions of dollars, over $3 billion of annual sales to our advertising partners every single year. And we're giving that data to our creators in order to power what they're talking about every single day. They're publishing millions of pieces of content through our distribution channel, particularly through our shopping app. And so they have the information about what is actually converting and what is actually working with their creators. With their consumers, excuse me. So now that you have the context for kind of how we got here, how we got to 2022, I want to talk about it 2022. And before I joined LTK, in a whole nother life, I was an investment banker. I worked on Wall Street for about a decade, and I can tell you that this market is unlike anything that I've seen in my entire career, but certainly anything that we've seen in quite some time, and certainly anything that most consumers actually remember. So this is a headline that probably came across many of your desks, which is that 70% of Americans actually believe that we're heading into a recession this year. 92% of Americans are concerned about inflation. That's everybody. So basically everyone in here is concerned about it. And so I think this is interesting and it's important because we could all kind of sit around and talk about whether or not a recession is going to come, how long that recession is going to be, what the recovery period will look like. I can sit around and try to figure out how it's going to affect the ad markets and how we should be behaving about it. But it doesn't actually matter because consumers are already changing their behavior because of this. So regardless of whether or not we're moving into this recessionary period or how we're going to react to it, consumers are having to respond because they're already seeing the impact in their pocketbook. Gas prices are very high. Food prices are very high. Every single headline that you see is really about how the market is reacting to this. So when we see this, and we talk to advertisers every single day, we conducted a national survey to really help advertisers understand how shoppers are reacting to this news, how shoppers are reacting to this information, what we can do to help advertisers combat this. And it's interesting because not all segments of the population are affected in the same way. And so one of the things that we found in this shopper study is that even though everyone is affected by inflation, Gen Z is actually disproportionately not affected by inflation as much. That is because their income is actually growing much faster than the rate of inflation, which I think now has to be greater than 10% or something ridiculous for the first time in 20 years, but has to be very high. And so we see that purchasing power in Gen Z and also in millennials is growing faster than the rate of inflation. And so they're not seeing quite as much pressure as other generations. Simultaneously, they are the most engaged with creator commerce, not surprisingly. And you kind of saw that in the earlier slides where we were talking about social media and the impact on shopping behavior. So there's a few more data points that we figured out from this shopper survey. The first is, basically on how consumers are going to work against inflation or curb inflation, if you will. The first is that they are shopping creators. They are shopping mobile social creators. And we're going to spend the overwhelming majority of our time talking about that one, so I'm going to skip it for now. The second one, which was really interesting, is that consumers are considering brands with the best price as their number one consideration in purchasing behavior at this moment in time. And so for those of you who keep up with this, this is a big shift because in terms of online shopping, the number one consideration historically has always been convenience. So how good is your return policy? How quickly can you ship something to my house? That has been the most important factor. And right now it's price, and that's switched. The good news is they're still splurging in key categories. And spoiler alert, many of those categories align really well with creator commerce, so that's good for us. And then lastly, and probably not surprisingly, to deal with inflation, they're driving less. This means that they're likely going to be considering online purchases even more because they're not running around to shops. All right, so now that we have all of this information, what do we do with it? What do we do with creator commerce? How do we use it to change our advertising strategies? And I want to invite you, now to think through a fun acronym that we put together because we're marketers, and this will help you remember it. But really, to be more with creator commerce. And I'm going to go through each one of these. But one of the things I wanted to mention here is that what's interesting about my conversation with advertisers today is that, I don't hear from advertisers because we're sitting in this kind of new paradigm or this new economic time that all of a sudden all of our goals are changing. We're not all of a sudden saying like, oh, it's fine if you have less revenue, or it's fine if, we're not quite as profitable because the market is more expensive. Instead, they're being asked to just do more with less. And I hear that every single day. And so today I want to talk about how you can be more with creator marketing: believable, efficient, memorable, organic, relevant, and effective. We'll start with believable. Creators are the single most trusted source on the internet for things like recommendations, especially around shopping. So when we ask consumers, what do you turn to? What do you turn to for shopping advice? The single most important source of recommendations they go to are social influencers. And that's followed, not too distant, but distantly by just sponsored ads on social media and celebrity posts, which is not, this should not be surprising. Very interesting, sitting in 2020, when I think we were all kind of rocked by very quickly changing economic and kind of social times. We saw the investment in creator materially, like step function change during 2020. And that is because creators are so believable, so authentic, and they have the ability to really tailor their message to what is going on in the environment at the time. And so in a moment like 2020, advertisers were able to rely on the creator ecosystem to make sure that their message resonated. The next is efficient. And I'm going to talk about efficiency in 3 different ways, but I want to start with efficiency as it relates to creative specifically. Creative is extremely efficient from a both an expense perspective and a quick turnaround perspective as well. As you can imagine, this should not be surprising either. They do not have to deal with large photo shoots. They do not have to deal with photographers. They don't have models. They don't have massive scenes or editing that they have to go and do afterward, which allows them to make this content, whether it be images or videos or whatever content it may be, very quickly, very cheaply. And they can also respond very quickly. And so that means that, like, in a world where, what may have resonated 2 weeks ago now needs to change for your brand, your message has pivoted, whatever the case may be, creators are very good at quickly responding to that and changing their content around that. The other thing that's important, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, is that this creative can go beyond just the impact of a social media post. So this is beyond just social impressions. And this content can actually be powerful for our advertisers across a whole host of properties, whether that's them pushing it out in their own social channels or utilizing that content in online or in-store means as well. The second way we're going to talk about efficiency is that it's just efficient spend. At the end of the day, creator commerce delivers an extremely high impact to your marketing budget. When we look at the LTK consumer shopping app, it converts at 4 times the rate of other channels. That is because it is purpose-built to drive consumer shopping behavior. And when we look at the return on ad spend for some of our largest partners, the ones that are spending consistently, we see that that's 7 to 10 times return on ad spend for those partners. And I love to talk about how LTK and creator commerce is truly a full funnel opportunity for our advertisers. But in a moment where revenue is so important and making sure that you're actually hitting the bottom line, creator commerce is truly impactful to your bottom line from a returns perspective. And then the last way that I want to talk about efficiency is efficiency beyond the click. So efficiency beyond just online conversion, but actually in store. LTK is constantly looking for ways to track how creators are doing and also to tell advertisers essentially how big of an impact are their creator commerce strategies actually having. This was another survey that we did, which basically asked people if they were impacted, if they were influenced in their in-store purchases by creators. And what we saw is that 30 to 40% of the population tells us that they made decisions on in-store purchases from influencer recommendations. We further were able to validate this recently with a campaign that we did, and it was kind of a hacky way, but we were able to basically give in-store discount codes during a specific campaign and actually see how much sales were driven in-store by some of our creator commerce strategies. And 20% of the sales from that particular campaign were all done in-store. So I think we can safely say, based on this and based on that campaign, that even the return on ad spend that we're seeing and that you saw on the previous slide is probably understated to the tune of 20 to 40% when you think about in-store conversions that are happening as well. Now we're going to talk about memorable. It's very interesting when we look at research, creator posts have a much higher recall than many other types of advertising. And when we look at how to maximize the impact of your creator commerce strategies, we look at ways to not only maximize that moment in time or those specific posts, but scaling that. And at LTK, we do that really in 3 different ways. The first is through our LTK shopping app. This is a purpose-built app for shopping. I touched on that just a little bit. But this app is really focused on driving conversions for our brands in a very commerce-oriented way. That means that the content that lives inside of LTK is evergreen. That means that it does not disappear after 24 hours and just go away. That means it is not impacted by an algorithm. It is there to help consumers find the products that they want or need from creators that they trust and brands that they love. The second is media boosting. So I think everyone knows that in this social media landscape, it's truly a pay-to-play environment, and that even though CPMs are supposedly coming down a little bit this year, we're not seeing exactly the same increase in return. And so what we really see is that in order to maximize the value of your investment in creator commerce, maximize the value of the post, you can marry that with a solid media boosting strategy to make sure that all of that content is reaching the audiences that you actually want or need to reach. And the last is creator licensing. We talked about, creators being very efficient at creating all of this wonderful content. We really want to make sure that that content is going as far as possible for our advertising partners. That means utilizing that content across your social media properties, your online e-commerce properties, anywhere that you are utilizing content can be a great place to include this amazing creator content. Organic. You may think that creator commerce is only good in fashion and beauty. That is a very common perception. But what we actually find is that creators are the most effective, the most authentic when they're talking about every single facet of their lives. And that's why you're seeing creator LTK posting growth in these categories that may be kind of like, food and bev, electronics, personal care. We're seeing massive growth in these places. And that's because creators are waking up every single day and talking about everything that they're buying, whether it's their shirt, whether it's their kids' clothes, whether it's their kids' toys, whether it's their detergent. And all of those messages are resonating. And when you can really factor in, or when you can really create that relationship with your followers, that's when we see authenticity at its highest, and again, conversion at its highest. And the thing that's really important here, I talked a little bit about splurge categories, but the thing that's important here is that creators are really good at knowing what their followers will splurge on. They're also really good at telling their audience what they should be willing to splurge on. And that can be really important to you. As you're thinking about what product categories are driving the highest margin for your businesses, you can partner really closely with these creators to make sure that message is getting across. And we can be really nuanced in the way that we develop those campaigns. The next is relevant, and I want to talk about relevancy in really two different ways. The first one is at a very high macro level. Creator commerce inherently is more relevant because as marketers, you do not have to come up with a one-size-fits-all message for your audience, where you're literally sitting there and going, what is the message that's going to resonate, that's going to be the most relevant for the biggest audience? Instead, you can take that message, deliver it to your creators, and they can make it as relevant as possible to the individual audience that they are serving and that is following them. The second is that they can quickly respond to changing consumer behavior. And that's really important, especially when you think about, what we lived through in 2020 and 2021, and now what we're going through in 2022. Creators can be really fast. And I'll give you a couple examples of this. From a timing and seasonality perspective, as we are quickly approaching the holiday season, we're seeing consumer behavior changing very rapidly around the time that they're wanting to shop. And creators are able to respond to that very quickly. We see holiday shopping behavior start to really pick up. The conversations around gifting really pick up inside of the LTK consumer app as early as September. We saw back to school actually pick up very early this year in June, with one study that we did showing that many consumers wanted to be done by July. We help creators with that information. We help to empower them with that information. And so they're able to talk to their consumers where their consumer is when they want to shop. And they're able to also make sure that their message is relevant based on the channel or the format that is going to resonate the most with their audience. At LTK, we have a rule that there's going to be a new channel every 2 or 3 years, or a new format on those channels. And that's fine. We don't care, because creators are amazing at making sure that their craft is changed or elevated or fit perfectly into that channel or that format. And the beautiful thing is that it's a new growth ground for brand new creators who are good in these different types of channels and figuring out which channel is going to resonate the most with their audience. So all of these things really lead to very relevant messages that can be pivoted very quickly, and a very efficient, or effective marketing strategy. So I'll end with this one, which is effective data and tracking. I started with it that we love creator commerce because it is really data-powered marketing. And that is absolutely true, and you don't have to just take our word for it. LTK tracks online sales, providing audience-level data, product-level data, benchmark reporting with 11 years of unmatched data to really optimize your advertising strategies. So all of these things come together so that you can truly be more with creator commerce, and you can prove that you were more. You can prove that your strategies actually worked. So I'll leave you here with just a couple of key takeaways, and then we'll have a few minutes for Q&A. So a few things that I want you to remember as you leave. Creator commerce is more believable than ads or celebrities. Hopefully you believe that already. And it's especially resonant with Gen Z and millennials, who are the least impacted by the inflationary environment that we are in and the most engaged with creator commerce. It is an extremely efficient marketing channel, both in terms of production costs, but also in terms of driving traffic and sales, both in store and online. And it can provide higher margins for you in those particular splurge segments that you want to highlight, delivering 4 times higher conversion inside of LTK and 7 to 10 times from a return on ad spend perspective. And then lastly, you can remember our little acronym. Creator commerce is more believable, efficient, memorable, organic, relevant, and effective than traditional marketing. All right, that is what I have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I have a question.
Okay.
Because I'm getting more into influencer marketing for Adweek, actually.
Nice.
And I'm wondering, as a brand or as someone who's maybe just starting an influencer program, where do you start? Do you start with the creators? Do you start with the concepts? Like, where's a good starting point for you?
Your goals. So you need to really start with, like, what are you trying to accomplish? And the beautiful thing is that no matter, I mentioned that creator commerce is a really full funnel opportunity, and it is. And so we really have to start with, what are you trying to accomplish? And then that helps to inform which creators you should be working with, and what channels they should be really talking about your brand on.
And do you find better success working with third-party like applications or websites to find creators, or do you do it more organically?
Well, we power all that. We power it. So we have over 150,000 creators inside of our ecosystem. All of our technology, all of that 11 years of data allow us to tell you these are the creators that are going to be the biggest impact for your marketing campaigns.
And when you work with creators, do you ever work with them one-on-one? Like, do you bring them in? Do you see them, or do you kind of just give them the brief?
It's a very relationship-based marketing strategy. The good thing is that we can take a lot of that burden on as LTK. Mm-hmm. We also provide technology tools if you want to foster those relationships directly, but it is very relationship-based. And I think it's really important, especially when you look at having long-term partnerships with creators, to develop that relationship so that it's not just a brief and a one and done, because they develop that relationship with the brand, and then that relationship then accrues to their audience as well. And so they're building that up over time.
It's better than just like a one post.
Exactly. And you need to see it over and over again.
Last question. What's your opinion on micro versus macro influencers?
Oh my God, this is everyone's favorite question.
I
know. We sit kind of solidly in the sweet spot. And the funny thing about it is, it's an interesting question because everyone has kind of a different opinion on what a macro influencer is and what a micro influencer is. And what we really see is, again, it has so much to do with what your goals are. Having Kim Kardashian post a multi-million-dollar post for you may not be able to see any return from that as a brand, versus working with some niche creators who have really engaged audiences about very specific things, who may have very small audiences, but they're very highly engaged audiences. So again, it comes back to, what are you trying to accomplish?
And to get the most conversion rate.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Let's give her another hand.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.